on today's admittedly substandard but nonetheless here episode of Into Your Head number 669, explaining here to an alien how to admonish your future self, the problem with digging, life without a mouth, a pope without cats, practicing science in the Garden of Eden, practicing science in your head, appreciating an extra head, and quite a lot more. This hint episode of Into Your Head podcast Hello is being recorded on St. Patrick's Day, Lola Fodrig, as those of us who aren't ignorant of our native language call it, except not out in public because nobody understands us. If you go up to someone in the street over here, I can tell you, and you say, "Oh, tá sé ag Lo an Fodrig, agus céin sic fág a bhfuil an gorilla ag dowsa leis an cat má sé do thulla." Oh, they look at you as if you have two heads, which apparently is a bad thing. Where I come from, they used to say 2 heads are better than 1, but no, people look at you as if you have 2 heads, but they don't look impressed. They think, oh, that fella, he's the equivalent of someone with 2 heads, but that's a bad thing. He's a nutcase. No, 2 heads, that's 100% extra brain power. That's considered bad now, because we're all obsessed with being silly. Nobody's allowed to have extra intelligence or extra heads or brains unless they're on some sort of an entertainment program on the television, some program about the Elephant Man or something. The Elephant Man didn't even have an extra head. He did have a particularly extra and particularly big head, but I'm pretty sure to damn Christ as hell it wasn't any extra brainage in it of any brainular use anyway. No, 2 heads are better than 1. Remember that. The next time you stare at someone like they've got 2 heads, do it in a nice way, do it in an admiring way, in a way that you're thinking, oh, there's someone with 2 heads. That's an extra brain working on the progression of mankind and womankind. That's an advancement for this society. Be a bit more fucking positive about it. Anyway, as I say, this is a prelude. The preceding was a prelude. The following, I suppose, is a continuation of the prelude. The prelude continues here with, although at some point it'll draw to a close, and then the program proper will start, as they say. They do this on a lot of podcasts. They'll say, before today's podcast, a few words, such as hello, and such as, here's some listener reviews, and then they'll go on for about 15 minutes, and they'll do some ads, and they'll say, oh, it's time to start today's podcast, and then they'll play a theme tune. There'll be someone going, Alison Rosen is your new best friend. And then she'll come on and say, hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Alison Rosen. As if you haven't already gathered it in the last 15 minutes. There's such a thing as overkill, you know. No. But admittedly, this is quite a long prelude. But it does also constitute part of the program. I'm not going to come on in a minute and say, oh, hello, the program starts here. Although maybe I will. You never know. But if I do, though, I hereby admonish myself for doing it. My future self, if you do that, I won't be very happy about it. Although I'll never know about it, because the me of the present will be gone by then. It'll be over to you. It'll be all in your hands, the you of the future. And I hope you know how much responsibility you have on your shoulders. Oh, you're like the new pope of the Into Your Head presenter timeline. So I hope you take it seriously. Put on don't be going around saying, oh, I'm not wearing that red cape. We'll have no more. That's what the new pope said. He says, I'm not going to wear that red cape thing. The carnival time is over, or something like that. And then he started complaining that his frigging apartment was too big. The old pope had cats, and he wasn't even allowed to have them in that apartment, so it can't be that big. Anyway, on with the show. 2 Pope Francises walk into a bar. One of the Pope Francises goes straight up to the bar counter, as does the other, and they both say, "Hello, can I have a pint of your finest Guinness, please?" And the man behind the bar says, "Which of you was first?" And they both say, "I was first. I'm the first Pope Francis." They both say in unison. And the man behind the bar says, "You can't both be the first. There's going to be two of you. One of you has to be Pope Francis the first, and one of you has to be Pope Francis the second." Now, of course, under the normal scheme of things, only one of you would be in power at a time. So the first one would just be called Pope Francis, because it would be a bit presumptuous for him to call himself Pope Francis the First, because that would be assuming somebody is going to come along and use his name again in his memory. But no, since there's two of you here now simultaneously, one of you has to be Pope Francis the First, and one of you has to be Pope Francis the Second. Although if one of you's retired, I suppose you could both be called Pope Francis, and one of you could just put Emeritus after your name. I feel this is out of my depth though, because I'm the barman. I'm not the frigging Pope. The Pope's legal counsel. I have no knowledge whatsoever of canon law. It's not really anything to do with me. I'm just trying to figure out who I'm supposed to serve first. And the first Pope says, "Well, why don't you serve both of us at the same time? As two Guinnesses, you've two taps there. Just line them up. And I'll tell you what, to make it easier, I'll pay for this round." And the other Pope says, "That's a bit presumptuous. I don't want a second round. I only want to have 1 point. But now you're putting pressure on me to have a second one." And the other Pope says, "Well, these things are here to test us. They're here to test us. It's God and the Satan and the devil and the rest of them testing us. So are you going to stand up and take it and bow to the test and see how it goes? Or are you just going to give up and not just have 1 Guinness?" And the Pope says, "I suppose that's a good point. That's a good point." And the barman says, "Oh, it's not finished yet. Don't taste it yet. It's only half filled. Have to wait for the foam to settle a bit now before I top it off." And the Pope says, "No, I didn't mean that point. I mean the point that the other fella just made." And the barman says, "Now how does that work with the infallibility if there's two of ye?" And the other Pope says, "We were just debating that, and it got a bit complicated, I have to admit. But don't worry, we'll just have a bit of a pray about it later. And I'm sure it'll all solve itself out with the guidance of..." Anyway, hello, and welcome to the show. We've a lot to get on with today. Items that need to be attended to. Issues that need to be addressed. Topics. Oh, topics. We've got lots and lots of topics. We're positively booming to the seams with topics. We've got topics coming out of this mouthful orifice, this mouthful outlet, this basically a gateway between my inner corporeal self and the outside world. If I tell you, if I didn't have a mouth, we'd have problems here. For one thing, I wouldn't even be able to think of this stuff because my brain would be literally starved of food. Well, I might get some oxygen in, but it'd be damn sure to Christ as hell I wouldn't get any food into it. And I can tell you, if you think I'm going to do a fucking podcast without having... Although now that you mentioned it, I haven't eaten today yet. But I did drink some coffee. I poured some coffee down my gullet, and if I didn't have a mouth, I can tell you that would be an issue. Maybe not for you, as you'd have never heard of me. I'd have never managed to use my mouth for anything. But no, now, if my mouth suddenly became unavailable to me now, although I can't see why it would. Why would my mouth suddenly become unavailable? It's not like it has a separate calendar from me. I have the one calendar here, and if I saw on the calendar that my mouth wasn't available today, I'd just make other plans. I'd say, "Mouth, I'll meet up with you tomorrow, and we'll do this tomorrow. We'll start all over again. In fact, we won't even start it today. Then we'll be fine." Now, I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking, Christ. You're thinking, Jesus Christ that's what you're thinking. You're thinking, Jesus fucking Christ Almighty, what in the name of... well, just spit it out. There's no need to be profane. Not that there's anything profane about saying the name of a deity who billions of people worship and believe in. That's not profanity. But some people would take offence at you thinking like that. So be careful now. So just spit out what you're thinking. If you've got something to think at me, just think it. And don't be putting in all these words, because all I'm getting so far is Jesus fucking Christ Almighty. That's all I've got. What do you want me to do with that? You have to work with me here. Give me something to work with. Anyway, while you're busy sorting out your thoughts, I suppose you'll have a bit of a song.
Follow Neal at twitter.com/intoyourheadpod and pretend to like him at facebook.com/intoyourheadpodcast.
Anyway, on with the show. Once upon a time, there was a dinosaur. In fact, there were several. We're led to believe by the so-called scientists who spend their days going around digging holes. Of course, if you dig a hole, you're removing evidence. The more you dig, the deeper you dig, the less there's going to be there, because you're just shoving it into a pile and looking at what's there rather than what you just took. That's the problem with these archaeologists. They dig and they think, oh, I've dug very deep, so that's a good thing. No, you haven't. You removed all that stuff. That's the bad thing. And now you're looking at the stuff, what's there under the stuff. No, look at the stuff itself. You should be building piles of things rather than making holes, removing things. You're basically a vandal. You're the vandal of the bollocks, whatever you call it. Anyway, once upon a time, where did I start this with? Once upon a time there was a dinosaur. I don't know, I can't remember. It seems so long ago now, although not as long ago as the dinosaurs. Oh, there's a little joke for you. I don't know, it started a long time ago, back when there were dinosaurs. And I tell you, that's the time when they wouldn't correct you on a bit of grammar. If you went up to someone in those days and said, oh, they're being grammatically incorrect, they'd just eat you. They'd eat you, and they'd be surprised for what you just said to them, because you'd be a dinosaur too, or else you'd be something else. I don't know. You certainly wouldn't be a human being. There was no humans being in those days. There was just dinosaurs being. And I tell you, we sure be damn sure to Christ as hell to wait until they all went away before we decided to start our little civilization here. Then Adam and Eve came along and they said, oh, this is a paradisical island. I'm surprised no one's been here before. Maybe there was big scary monsters or something here before. Now it's all just apples and snakes and apples. Apples and do snakes eat apples, I wonder? Well, there's only one way to find out, I suppose. We'll get a snake and we get an apple and we put them beside each other. Now, to do it scientifically, you have to decide how long you're going to leave it there for, and whether you're going to put something else for the snake to choose between and the apple. I suppose you could have an apple. See if the snake, give the snake a choice of eating an apple or I don't know, a human being. Forever work. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the science of the Garden of Eden era. Why would I be? It's very confusing. We get all there's mixtures, there's myths and facts all wrapped up together in this. Because we know for a fact there were such thing as snakes in those days. We just don't know whether those days ever existed. And I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking, even if those days did exist, they don't exist now. Because they're in the past. They existed, but they don't exist anymore. Well, you're making a lot of presumptions there about how physics and how the space-time continuum works, which perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps it doesn't work. Has that ever occurred to you? For one thing, this part has just come off into my face. This thing just fell off. This thing that's supposed to guard my spit from your ears just came off in my hand. It's okay, I reattached it now. It's just adjusted a bit. It's all fine, don't worry. Suffice to say, yesterday, does yesterday exist, for example? Well, some would argue that it exists in the past, but that means it doesn't exist anymore. But does anymore exist? Anymore is a thing too. It doesn't exist in anymore, but when is anymore? Anymore could be anything. Could yesterday be anymore, for example? Because if that's the case, if it doesn't exist in anymore, but it does exist in yesterday, then that's like the Schrodinger's cat theory. It exists and doesn't exist at the same time. Yesterday, any particular time yesterday are we talking about? Are we talking about, say for example, 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time? You've got 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time and you have 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Those are two different times, obviously. So if it exists at both of those times, those are still yesterday. So it doesn't exist twice. It's a double non-existence. It's like two parallel universes in the same universe. They're just at different times. They're two different yesterday existences. You can have infinite numbers of them, depending how small you can divide up a nanosecond into. Am I making sense here? I hope not. If I'm making sense to you here, you should be listening to something a little more intellectual than this, because this is all made up crap. In fact, I'm only putting this bit of segment in as filler because I've noticed that the commercial break happens very early in the show, and I want to insert this in to shift it up so that it happens later. If you get my drift, if you get my general direction, and maybe you might get my direction but not get where I'm going. You mightn't see where I'm going to. You can see that I'm drifting over that way, but you can't see what's over that way or why I'd want to go over there. Which I suppose is fair enough. You're not a frigging mind reader. Maybe most of you aren't. The chances are you're not a mind reader. I'd put money on that if I had any. I'd say I'll put €15 down on the person who's listening to this not being a mind reader. And how you'd prove it, I don't know. I'm not a connoisseur of the betting game. That was probably why I'd be better off not participating in it, which is why I don't, and that's why I'm better off. So apparently I'm better off now because of that. So presumably I'd be less well off if I hadn't. So there's a sign. That's a sign, if ever I saw one, that I shouldn't go into the gambling industry. Because I've just proven scientifically that I'm better. As I've proven just by the way of a thought experiment. As scientists, I didn't need any frigging pipettes or equipment or some big laboratory around me. I just did a bit of proving inside my head, by a bit of thought and logic. That's how you do science. All you need is a brain and the ability to think linearly. Anyway.
If you would like to comment on any of the issues raised in this program, email studio@intoyourhead.com. Remember, we value the opinions of you, the humble and ignorant listener.
Matchstick cats. Matchstick cats. Matchstick cats. Matchstick cats and stuff.
Are you a cat? Or do you know somebody who might be? Then tell yourself about Matchstick Cats, Neal's webcomic. Brand new episodes at intoyourhead.com.
Cats and stuff. intoyourhead.com.
Two harmonicas walk into a bar. One of the harmonicas goes straight up to the bar counter and says, and the man behind the bar says, that's all very well, but we already have our own in-house entertainment booked up every night of the weekend, and there isn't really enough business to justify it on the weekday, but thank you very much indeed. And the man behind the harmonica says, no, that was an order. I'm sorry, I do that out of habit. I meant to say, can I have a pint of your finest Guinness, please? And the man behind the bar says, oh, absolutely, why didn't you just say so? And the man behind the harmonica says, I did just say so. I just explained that you're not listening to me. And the man behind the bar says, okay, take a chill pill. Take a chill pill. You can get them from that fella over there, but keep it quiet. Don't go around making a big theatrical display of it, because it's not really strictly above board, if you get my drift. And the man behind the harmonica says, oh, you mean a drug dealer? You've a drug dealer over there selling pills, is that it? And the man behind the bar says, I've no idea what you're talking about, sir. And the man behind the harmonica says, I'm talking about the fact that there's a drug dealer here, dealing in drugs, selling pills illegally, all sorts of pills, presumably ecstasy. Is that what he sells, or stuff like that? I don't really know the names of any other street drugs. Are they still called street drugs when they're sold indoors? I suppose they are, because this is a public house. It's a pub, not some hospital or some house. They're the street drugs. There's a pub on the street. It's like that Madness song, our house in the middle of our street, our house. And then the barman interrupts and says, excuse me, sir, do we have a strict song performance law here we have to abide? I don't have a license for you to sing that well-known hit by the group Madness in this public house here at the moment on this particular night. Not least because you're not employed here. You're a patron of the pissorial arts, I suppose you could call it. You're basically here to drink some beer that'll make you piss. And the man behind the bar, the harmonica, says, oh, sorry about that. Anyway, pint the Guinness, please. And the man behind the bar says, certainly, young man, here's your pint of Guinness. And the man behind the harmonica says, oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very, 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 very much, Mr. Eastwood. Oh, and stuff. And foreigners probably wouldn't recognise that song. I barely recognise it myself. If I remember rightly, it was a thing by some boxer. He did a song thanking his manager, who was a Mr. Eastwood. Whatever, maybe it was something else. I don't know. I don't know everything about popular culture. I just have bits of them stuck in my head, and they help me get out of a frigging two harmonicas walk into a bar story on occasion, so they come in useful. Earwigs. That's what they call them. They call them earwigs. It's basically, it's not what you might imagine if you were an alien in here trying to make sense of the language. Even if you were being perfectly logical, you think, oh, ear, I've heard of that. And wig, I've heard of that. So it's probably a wig for your ears. So apparently they like to have wigs for their ears, which makes sense because it's the one part of their head that's completely exposed to the elements and not protected by hair. They should be wearing earwigs. Any neutral observer from another planet coming here would fully expect human beings to want earwigs. But no, apparently we don't. Apparently we don't want any hair on our ears whatsoever. In fact, when we get older, we actively seek to remove any hair that's grown in our ears, even though it may well serve to keep us warm. We think, no, I don't want to be warm. It's unfashionable to be warm. I want to be as cold as be damned and not have hair coming out of my ear, even though it probably serves at least 3 perfectly natural and useful purposes that may help even extend my life. No, I want this chopped out. I'm going to get a frigging tweezers. Same with my nose. I don't want any hair coming out of that. The hair should be lucky I allow it to come out of my head. I allow it on my head because I know it can be shaped into a fashionable shape. But apart from that, no, hair is bad. I'm surprised we haven't got weed killers for human hair to get rid of it nowadays. But no, earwigs. Any alien would think, oh, it's a wig for your ears. But of course, as those of us who claim to be more sensible than these aliens know, an earwig is not that. It's some sort of an insect. It's an insect, a bug standard insect that goes around. I don't really know much about them. Suffice to say, it's interesting to think, isn't it? Or is it? I don't know. It's filled up 2 minutes and 10 seconds anyway, so that's something not to be frowned upon. You were warned at the beginning of this show that it was going to be substandard, so don't be getting your hair in the twist, especially the hair coming out of your head that you've chosen to leave there. If I were you, I'd just let it grow, as that Christmas song goes, let it grow, let it grow, let it grow. Oh, the weather outside is freezing, and it's going to snow on my head. And there's natural hair on my head trying to get out, so let it grow, let it grow, don't be shaving your frigging head, for Christ's sake, people. It's there for a fucking... 2 incomplete sentences walk into a bar. One of the incomplete sentences goes straight up to the bar counter and says, "Hello, can I have a pint of your finest Guinness, please?" And the man behind the bar says, "Certainly, sir. And would you like something for your friend there?" And the incomplete sentence says, "I certainly would." And the man behind the bar says, "So that's 2 Guinnesses, is it?" And the incomplete sentence says, "Yes, I suppose it is, although I hadn't told you what my friend wanted. Perhaps if you let me finish a sentence every now and then, you might." And then the man behind the bar says, "Oh, I'm very sorry about that." And the incomplete sentence says, "You've done it again, you've done it again." And the man behind the bar, meanwhile, is pointing, because there's a couple of prison officers from the local prison coming in the door, ready to arrest the incomplete sentence, who was recently absconded from the local jail and is about to be rearrested, thanks to the barman who pressed a button under his pressed an emergency button under his bar and contacted the emergency services, and a great night is had by all.
Into your